All right, here we go. We are going to do a tutorial on global signals, and we're going to do it the same way we did in 3x. People really like that format. It was really simple, easy to understand. So we're going to do the same thing. And what we're going to do, and I can just actually demo this because I've walked through the project, we're going to set up a bunch of units in the main scene, and we're going to be able to emit a global signal that says, hey, all you units, all the units out in the world, no matter what number of you there are, go ahead and start your spin animation. Okay. And then we're going to hook up some mouse click events, and we're going to animate the unit and have the unit take some damage here. Each one is a unit. And then this unit on death is going to signal back to the main scene and say, hey, I died, so do whatever you want to do now. Maybe you want to update the score or something like that. So it's a good, simple use case for global signals. We're also going to demonstrate a tween, and then we're also going to demonstrate how to wait for a tween. And we can see here that when we click this button, or this whatever, this animation, this unit, that it's flashing 3 times. And what we want to do is say, hey, when you're done with your animation, go ahead and emit a local signal so we know that you're done and can do something else, such as decrement your HP. And that way, if your HP is below 0, then we can do something. But we want to make sure that your animation finishes before we like cue free you or delete you from the scene tree. All right, so this is what we're going to end up with. We're going to walk through explaining it from the beginning. So we're in a new project here. All right, so we're going to create a new main scene, and there we go. I'm going to save this right away. I usually put my main scene at the root level. I also keep all my scenes and files lowercase. Personal preference, do what you want. Okay, so we have our main scene. Then we're going to add a new unit scene. And actually, so I click 2D node there, but I'm going to change this, give it a name, and then I'm going to change this because I want to be able to click on it, so I need an area 2D for that. So I'm going to change it from just a standard node 2D to an area 2D. That allows me to get some other events. And we're going to add a collision shape, so I can click on that. And it's going to be a rectangle collision shape right there. Now I can go into the unit and save all that. And we're going to add a scenes folder. I put all my other scenes besides main in a scenes folder, and we're going to create one subfolder here called unit, and we're going to save it to it. And that's kind of how I like to set up my tree. You can do it however you want. Let's see. So our unit needs a sprite, so we're going to get that added. And I need a copy of that sprite. Let me find it here in a folder off to the side. There we go. I'm going to bring that over. I'm just going to drag it anywhere in the scene tree here for a second. Then I'm going to right click and create new folder assets, where I like to put all my images. And usually I organize them by whatever the type is. So I might go create new folder and do unit. Depends on the project. There's unit, and then we could put the unit icon in there. Now I can drag this over to the sprite 2D texture, and there's our unit. Okay, we'll save that, and then in our main scene, I'm going to right click on it, choose instantiate child scene, and now we're going to instantiate a instance of our unit, and there we go. And I'll click the move mode the move icon, and now I can move it wherever I want in the scene tree. And now via Control D, if I click the unit in my scene tree and hit Control D, I can add as many units as I want. We only need a few, so I'll do 4. Keep it similar to my original. And now I can click each one of these with the move mode still selected and move these around on my scene. There we go. So I have 4 instances of the same unit scene, basically copies. Okay. And so next, I want to add a button to my main scene. This is what's going to trigger the units to animate. So let's do a search for button. Okay. And let's do spin unit. Okay, there it is. I don't need to do anything special with it. Usually I like to do spin, name my buttons, spin unit button. I name them first because then when I come over here and I look at the node's signals, these are the built-in signals for buttons. I can double click on pressed and it's going to auto create the, oh, it's not going to auto create because I don't have a script. So first I need to click main, click add script. I'm just going to leave it the default name, ends up in the same folder, which is the root for main. So now when I come back to spin and I double click pressed, it's going to automatically give me the name, and it's going to be based on, or the function, and it's going to be based on the actual button name, so spin unit button. So I can just hit connect here, and it's going to automatically create this function for me at the bottom of my script. All right, so on button press, what we want to do is emit a global signal that sends a signal to the world of all, in the game, and anybody who's listening to that signal is going to hear it and then do something. Everybody else who's not listening for that signal is just going to ignore it. All right, so what we need to do is set up our global signal. So we'll do that next. So what I usually do is I create a folder called singletons. Singletons. Oh, I can do it. Singletons. There we go. And we're going to create a new script in that folder. And it's going to be called, what are we going to call it? Signals. Yes, signals. I create a bunch of different singleton classes, and this is just one of them. So we have signals, and now in order to make this a global class, we need to come up here to project settings, and go to auto load. And we're going to select that script we created in the singletons folder. There we go. And it automatically gives it a name based on the file name. I like signals. You want to try to keep it as short as you can because you tend to type these over and over throughout all your code. So signals works for me really well. So we just click add, and once it's added here, it's now a global signal. You can rename it here if you want for any reason. You can also disable it, but keep it here, or you can actually delete it if you no longer need it for whatever reason. You can also change the order in case there's dependencies in your global signals, like one global class relies on another, that kind of thing. But with that, all we have to do is hit close. This is now set up as a global class. We can add, if we go into it, it's blank. And so to set up our global signal, we can just do signal and then what is it? Spin unit, I think it was. Not plural. Spin, oh, geez. Spin unit. And so that's it. And so what I usually end up with in all my games is I have 25, 50 of these defined for all the different types of signals I'm sending back and forth between all the events happening in my game. And they're just listed here, signal this, signal that, whatever it is. And then, so now we've defined the global signal. Now we need to tell, we need to emit it. So so in order to reference our global signals, we're going to use the global signal name, signals, okay, dot emit signal, and then we're going to give the signal we want to emit. So again, keep in mind we're in the main scene, and this is the main script on button press. It's going to emit what signal? Spin unit. And that's it. So now when we press the button, this signal is going to be emitted. And now we just need to set up the listeners. So who's going to be listening for it? The unit. So we go to the unit. It's going to need a script in order to listen. Create that. And then in here, under ready, you could set it up here. The signals dot, it's a connect. You can set it up in here, but what I like to do is do init signals. And that way I put all my signal emissions in here like this, signals. So I'm connecting to the global script once again, and I'm connecting to that global signal, and it's called spin unit. And now what I want to have happen is when I hear it, that signal will be emitted, I'm going to call a function. I can call that function whatever I want. It's considered a callable, in other words, a function, but you don't put the parentheses in, you don't have double quotes or anything around it. But what I like to do is name it the same as my signal name, and because it makes it a lot easier to find in my code. So let's save this. So we have 3 references to this signal. It's one is for the connection, one is for the function name, and one is in the signals and actually there's I guess 4 places and 1 for the emission. So if I were to ever just do a search for spin unit in my code, I can come down here and I just did a control F if you didn't know. Select that, control shift F actually, and then do find. And that's going to show me all the places this is referenced. So if I need to find other places in the code that are listening for a signal, I can find them all real easy because they all have the same name. But a lot of people are going to do something like this, spin unit handler. Okay. And that's fine. And that might still work here. But if you name this handler spin unit or something, when you go to find it, then you may not find it. But in this case you would, so it makes no sense. It's a terrible example. Never mind that. Anyway, you get the gist. So spin unit. All right, so what do we want? In this case, what we want to actually have happen is we want to show a tween. So where do we got? I got it. I'm going to copy paste it so I get to cheat. You probably can't. But what we have here is that when this signal is picked up, we're going to call spin unit. That's going to create a tween. It's going to use the set loops. So we want this animation just to loop forever. And the way we do that is by not specifying a value here. If I specify 2, that'll loop the animation twice. But specifying nothing, goes forever. And then in here, we're going to set a property, which is basically if we look at the sprite, or if we look at the unit actually, we're going to be adding the tween to the unit itself. If I wanted the sprite, I could specify sprite 2D, but we actually are just going to rotate the whole entire thing. So we're going to refer to unit, and then we're going to be tweening. You could tween any of these things, the gravity, the scale, whatever you want. We're going to be doing the rotation. So we specify that property here. Then we set the value we want it to rotate to, and the amount of time we want it to take to complete that rotation. So since the unit is at 0 rotation, it's going to take 100, milliseconds? In order to get to 359. And so I'm also going to use as relative. So that means that no matter where it's at, if the unit's actually already at 92.1 rotation, and then we call this animation, this tween, then it's going to start at 92.1 and then continue to 359, which is neat for fluid animations, so you don't see them kind of reset to 0 and then start performing their animation, which you can do if you just remove this. Okay, and so with that, let's take a quick look here. Okay, so I'm debugging the project for the first time, so I'm getting this notification, hey, you haven't specified a default starting scene. So we're going to select current, but actually we're in unit, so we don't want to do that. So I'm going to cancel, and we're going to go to main. And since I canceled that, I could hit here, play, and then that'll give me an opportunity to select main. And I'll do that. And if that doesn't work for you, I'm going to stop real quick. You can go up to project settings, go to general, and under run, you can specify whatever scene you want to start, and you're going to want to specify your main scene. So if it's in a different folder, has a different name, you could fix that here. You can use the folder icon to drill down and find that wherever that is. So if I wanted my unit scene, I could select that. And now when I come up here, my unit's going to be the only thing that loads. But what we want is our main scene. So let's do that. And it should be at the root level of here. There it is. So we select that. And now it's going to start at the main scene. All right. So there we go. Now we're seeing, instead of the one unit loading, we're seeing everything load. Okay. And let's see. So what we have set up is the main scene has a spin button. When I click on it, it's supposed to emit a spin unit signal. That spin unit signal is global, so it goes out to everything in the game. Anything that is connected and listening to that signal is going to do whatever they want with it. And in this case, each unit is going to spin itself. So let's do that. Ready? Fail. Nice. Okay, so what could have gone wrong? Let's take a quick look. I probably just missed something. So we're set up here to spin unit. Make sure all our names are right. Spin unit signal. And in the unit, init signals. Oh, right here. What is this? How come I didn't get an error? this is this is a nonsense 4x error, but this, I guess it just treated this as a function name, and since I have an underscore, it's ignoring it, I guess. So let's do that. So what happened here is it just said, hey, this is just some random function you've created in this project. And it doesn't do anything, or it's not being called, so I'm not going to error or anything. But now I'm calling the baked in ready functions, which means this will get called at startup. So that's what happened there. Oopsie doopsie. All right, so spin unit, and there we go. They're all spinning, and they're going to infinitely spin forever. Great. So that's the first step, getting global signals working in one direction. And now what we want to do is play around with local signals and also calling back into main. So let's do the local signal setup. So what we can do, part of the reason I got the unit set up here is so that I can click it. So I'm going to go over to node. I'm going to double click on input, and I'm going to cheat again. I copy paste this always. I never type it because I can never remember it all. But what we got here is if the input event, which is either a keyboard, a mouse, or a controller or something, if this input event is fired and it happens to be a mouse button, and it happens to be the left mouse button, and it happens to be a pressed event versus a up event, that would be a mouse release event there if I set it up that way, but we want it on pressed. Then I want to have the unit take damage. So we're going to damage the unit on click, but I'm not going to pass in a value just yet. We're going to come up here, go function, take damage, and on damage, let's set up a new tween animation, and we will call it show damage animation. This is important towards being able to trigger an animation on a unit or a card or an effect, and then having to wait for that effect to finish before you take next steps. And this is a really great example of that, because it can be tricky if you find yourself adding a bunch of weights effectively, like get tree, create timer, whatever it is, and you're using that everywhere, basically a bunch of sleeps waiting for things. That would be a code smell, a design pattern smell. You don't want to do that. You want to rely on events. So when something's done, it fires an event, then everything knows for sure that this thing is now ready to take next steps. Because when you rely on timers for things like that, whether you're using a timer over here or a timer in code, what happens is somewhere else you're going to make a change to the timing and forget that you have this other timer, and now you have a race condition, and those are really difficult to debug and find and test. So rely on events for sure. Okay, so what do we want to have happen here? What we want is to set up a tween. I'm going to do some other things to take damage in a minute, but for now we're going to get this thing flashing, and I'm going to cheat just to save some time. You could pause, I could cheat. All right, so we're going to set up another tween, and this one's going to loop only 3 times, not infinitely. And the property we're going to change is the modulate, and that property allows us to change the color of this node and all other nodes underneath it. If I use self-modulate, it only changes the color of the node that I have it applied to. In this case, it would be the unit. But we want the whole thing to flash red, and we can see that we're flashing red. This is red, green, blue, and then we have the transparency of it. So we're going to dim it out just a little bit, and then we're also going to start as relative, which is basically 1111, since that's the default modulate color. And so this is going to flash it red 3 times, and I think we can just show that. So if I click 2, 3, nice little effect there. So each one of these will do it. Okay, how come you're not doing it? Oh, maybe, why aren't you doing it? I think, let's take a look at our unit and the collision shape. Maybe I didn't update the collision shape. I didn't. There we go. So looking at the unit, I click on collision shape, and I have the arrow selected here. That allows me to adjust the size of the collision shape. I'm not worried about perfection, so I'll just do that. And now when we run it, Should work like a drum set a little bit better. There we go. We got some strobing lights. And if I click it a bunch, then it's gonna actually create a tween multiple times, and each one is gonna operate at the same time and finish. And that's what you get this effect here, because they're all running at the same time. Okay. And there's ways to deal with that. If you want to, you can make your tween a global tween. And so before you do show damage animation, if you want to stop the previous animation, you could do tween.stop. That'll stop whatever previous animation's currently running, and then we can create a new one and start from wherever we're at. And actually keep in mind, when you stop, it resets the tween effects that were being applied to that node. And so it resets it back to its default state, and then your animation would start from there. Okay, so that's that. We're flashing now. So, oops, I think I deleted the wrong thing there. Okay, var tween. Okay, so what we want to actually have happen here is that when the unit takes damage, we want it to animate. Let's show that again. We want it to animate, and when it's done animating, we want to do a death check, but we don't want that death check to happen until it's done animating. And if we show this is a really good example. Let's add HP here. Is less than or equal to 0. I'm gonna queue free for now. Before that, we're gonna do HP minus equals damage amount, and we're gonna add that up here. Then down here, we're going to pass in a damage value of 1. So what we need to also declare this as global. I like doing everything backwards if you haven't noticed. Okay, 3. Okay, I'm not going to start dead. All right, so what's going to happen is on button press, or actually on unit press, we're going to call this take damage 1 function. I'm going to pass this in. We're going to show the damage animation. And because tweens actually, when you configure them like this, they just automatically run. And so they don't wait for this to finish. The execution returns immediately, and we start processing these lines. And we'll see that here now. Okay, so on click, what we're expecting is the flashing, and then how quickly do we get to here? And what we'll find is that on click, which I'm going to do right now, that we end up on this line instantly before this animation even starts, okay? Which means that if I allow this to continue, what we can see, actually, let me just allow this to play. So that was the first click. I'm going to click it again. That's the second click. And we had 3 health, and we're taking away 1 at a time. So on the third click, we expect this to delete. And what we want is for the animation to complete and then be deleted. But what happens is on click, which I'll do now, it deletes instantly. And that's not what we want. We want to see that animation, whatever, it's a death animation, right? The unit's falling over and whatever. And then we clean it up and get rid of it. We phase it out of the game. And so how do we do that with a tween? With the animation player, you would set an event that says on finish, go ahead and do something. But tweens are far superior to animation player. They're way simpler, they're way easier, that's the same thing. They're way more flexible and cleaner and easier to use. And also they come with this a couple nifty sort of properties here. One is the callback, tween callback, and it's a callable, which again is a function name. So I could say done, let's see, done, or wait, damage animation completed. Okay, that's a good name for it. And then function, and but the problem with this one, let's do a print on this. The problem with tween callback is that this is going to fire for every iteration. So this is going to fire 3 times, and let's see that now. So we're looking at our output here. If I click on this, we're going to see that for each flash, we get 1 entry here. And so that's not what we want. What we want to have happen is we want all 3 of these things to, all 3 of these animations to take place, and then we need to be notified that it's done. And the way we do that is with awaits. Tween has a built-in event called finished. Okay, and so this is going to await for this signal, this event, to be fired, and when it's done, then we're going to be able to continue forward. And so you could call a function here. We could do it this way. So I could say, like, I could perform my HP checks and things here, but I don't like doing that because here's where take damage. This is like a good logical place to do that sort of check. But let's do it here. And we're going to see that when I click this, we'll put this here. I'm going to click, we're going to get our 3 animations, and then this function gets called, so we could do whatever we wanted after that. So this is super powerful for your tweens. But what I want to do is I want to actually send a signal back so that take damage can wait for it, and then once it gets its signal, it can continue processing the damage. So the way we do that is we're going to emit a local signal. Try again, signal, and same name, damage animation completed. Get rid of that. Okay, so you can tell this is a local signal because it doesn't have a global name in the front of it, our global signals name. So this is just going to emit only locally, so no other scene in the game is going to hear this signal. So we go up here, we're going to define it, same way we do with the globals. And then in our init signals, actually, I don't want to use that, I'm just so used to typing it. We're going to do connect. I put my local signals at the top for whatever reason. Now, when using a local signal, we can't have the same name, unfortunately. So it has to be something different. So damage animation completed, handler. Okay, and I'm going to add this function, and I'm going to put in pass. Now, the interesting thing here is that I don't need to do anything in here. I only need to listen. And so what I want to do here is call await and then listen for my local signal. Okay, so what's going to happen here is we're going to wait here for the animation. When it's done, it's going to fire this local signal. It's going to get picked up by this local connection that's listening for it. This is going to get called. Nothing's going to happen, but this await that was also listening for this local handler goes, oh, I got what I was waiting for, so go ahead and continue processing. So what we'll find is that now we can spin the unit as well, and then we can also add this effect. It's flashing, and when it's done, hey, oh, that was only the first click. I was expecting it to delete. I forgot. Okay, the second one, right, and then the third one. Oh, what happened? Await finished, damage completed. No, that should work. Handler. Oh, see, this was a dumb mistake. I'm awaiting the function, and that's not what I want. I'm waiting for the signal. My bad. There we go. Awaits can be tricky sometimes. All right, there's first click, there's second click. We can spin for fun, and then on the third click, we should animate, and then poof, delete. Okay, so that's working great. So now I can, maybe I put this in a different function, but whatever, this works great. And all this take damage logic is all in one place, and we're waiting for our animation. So what we can do here is that instead of Q-freeing myself, I'm going to actually send that responsibility back to my parent, whoever's controlling me and paying attention to me, because I don't know what's going on in the world. Maybe I don't want to be cleaned up until I'm off screen or until some special effect is no longer on me. And I forgot I have food on the barbecue. Okay, we're going to have to clean this up quick. Okay, so I was smoking and now I'm supposed to be cooking. Okay, here we go. Signals dot emit signal, and we're going to do unit defeated. Okay, so we want this to be a global signal, so we're going to set it up here. Bam. I'm going to get in trouble here in a minute. Okay, and we're going to go to main. And in main, we got to set up our ready function. Get the Y in there. And it's signals. Okay. Okay. And signals dot connect to it. We're referencing our global signal class. Unit defeated. And here's the function. We're going to keep it the same name. And we are going to pass in unit here. Okay. And then what are we going to do with the unit? We are going to print, just give some kind of example here, unit.name and then unit.queueFree. And that should be enough just to show that we're giving control back to the parent scene and allowing it to do something with us before cleaning it up. So, but I need to actually add the class name here so that main knows that it's a unit. I don't have to do this. I can just pass in unit and it's going to work just fine. But this is nicer. So make sure that only units can be passed into this. Okay, so this should be good to go. So what's going to happen again is we're going to take damage 3 times. Once we hit 0, we're going to emit here. Now normally I'm going to put in some logic here that says, hey, we only want to call this take damage 1 time, or we don't want take damage to do anything when the unit is below 0 health. So I might do something like this and then return so that I don't flash it and I don't try to kill it more than once. But this can be hardened and improved, but for now, just so you have an idea. So once we get to below 0, we're going to emit unit defeated, and inside of main is the only class that's listening for this. So if it picks it up, it's going to print it out and then delete it. So let's run that. Okay, here's 1. Might as well spin since we have that functionality, and then 2, and then 3, and unit gets deleted. Hey? Oh, got a bug. Error calling. This is good because you might get errors like this too. Take damage. Error calling from signal unit defeated to callable. Unit defeated method expected 1 argument. Yep. So that means that this is expecting 1 argument, but my emission here did not include that argument. So there we go. Now we're including the unit itself. I could pass along the HP if I wanted to do that, but then I would need to update the function handler to take in an int instead of the unit. But we're going to take the whole unit so we can print out the name. And so we can clean it up. So there's 1, there's 2, and here's 3, and then the unit should be queue-freed, and we can see that we got unit 4. So I can do that to all of these, and individually, everything's, I'm clicking all these things a bunch of times, and they'll all be cleaned up, boom, 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 and there you go. So that kind of gives you a really good idea of how global signals could be used. Again, if you find yourself trying to navigate the tree up and down, mainly up, down is okay when you have a parent-child relationship. That's normally fine, but if your parent is trying to maybe access grandchildren deep down in the tree, that might be an opportunity to use signals. It really depends on the situation, but mainly up. Always have, for the most part, your children signaling to your parents or whoever's listening on what to do with them, as an example. Okay, that's all I got. I got to go tend to my barbecue. Hope this helps. Cheers, bye. Leave a comment if you have questions or notice something that I did wrong or have ideas of your own. I'd love to hear from you. And that's it. Cheers, bye.